the heart and soul behind every business. Stories. Welcome to Business Story of the Week, hosted by me, Joshua Laurie. From setbacks to comebacks, from tragedies to triumphs, we inspire entrepreneurs through conversations that matter. Witness the magic that turns dreams into reality. Whether it's your career, business, or life, your success is always one story away. This is Business Story of the Week.
Hi, I'm Maria Ross, and you're listening to Business Story of the Week.
Fantastic. And that is the lovely Maria. She's our guest for today. I'm Joshua, your host. Maria, is empathy can empathy actually boost profit, or is it just good PR?
Empathy can actually do a ton to help your strategic and competitive advantage if it's adopted with a genuine good intent. There's so much data and research out there that show that empathy doesn't only boost profit, it boosts engagement, performance, loyalty, both customer and employee loyalty.
Wow.
It boosts word of mouth. It boosts longevity and the better mental health and ability to balance work life with personal life or integrate work life with personal life. So there's a host of benefits out there that empathy and empathetic leadership provide for your
Yeah,
organization.
I love that. I really love the opening to this. I really love that answer. Like I said prior to this recording, I'm quite excited about their episode. Of course, to our audience and listeners out there, Maria Ross, rather, is an empathy advocate, speaker, author, a strategist with nearly 30 years of experience helping leaders and brands connect through empathy. Her work focuses on blending compassion with business strategies to foster growth. She's the author of The Empathy Dilemma and The Empathy Edge, right there,
Mhm.
and hosts the popular podcast, The Empathy Edge. Maria, why do I keep saying that? Maria has delivered keynotes and workshops for global communities, companies like Salesforce and TEDx. She lives in Northern California with her family and continues to inspire through her speaking, consulting, and writing. Maria, thank you so much for coming onto the show. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. You've been everywhere, Maria. You appeared in a lot of media outlets, MSNBC, NPR. You were at Forbes, ABC. Literally, I'm quite honored to have you on here. But we before we really dive deep into it, and I always start the show this way, and I think it's a perfect way to also start off our topic. What was the young Maria like? Was she always emphatic? What did she think about leadership growing up? And throughout her experience, where did she pick up empathy?
Well, I think that I have always been a leader by design, although I always, for a long time, preferred to be the second in command because I felt like that was you could get the most power with less responsibility than if you were the actual one in charge.
Okay.
But I've always been extroverted. I've been a good leader, a good organizer of people, very biased toward action. And I had a long, successful career in both management consulting and marketing until I started
Mm-hmm.
my own business in 2008. And then I
Mm-hmm.
focused strictly on brand strategy and brand messaging to help elevate the truth of a company's and a business's story so that the right people can find you. And through my work with marketing and communications my entire career, I
Mm-hmm.
realized that empathy was always the superpower behind it all. It was always
Interesting.
the ability to understand your audience, whether it was your external audience, clients, customers, or your internal audience, your stakeholders, your team,
Mm,
and to leverage empathy to create better connections so that you could get people more engaged and get people
mm-hmm.
more bought in. And most importantly, move them to action, motivate them
Yes.
to action because they felt like you were on their side. And so empathy's always been a strong part of my work with brand strategy clients for, 16 plus years, just helping them
Right.
understand that when they tell their story in an honest, genuine, emotional way, it doesn't even matter if they're selling B2B, they're going to connect with people on a
Mm,
subconscious level. And that's going to make them be a brand that people want to be a part of. They want to do business with you. They want to invest in you. They want others
Hmm.
to know that you are their partner.
I
When
love
we
it.
think of, the best brands on the planet, like Apple or Nike or Disney, those are brands that have created that message and that story. And so that
Mm.
was really what I was helping my clients with for decades. And then I wrote a book called The Empathy Edge, and it came out in 2019. But I was researching brands and leaders who were winning with empathy, because the models we had in front of us at that time were not great. The ones that were stealing headlines, the business leaders, the political leaders. And I had a young son at the time, and I thought, these are not the role models I want him to be exposed to. I know that there's people and there's brands winning with empathy, and the data and the research back that up. And so I wrote The Empathy Edge. The pandemic happened. People really understood the need for empathy
Oh,
in
yes.
business to drive strategic goals and strategic results. And I just came out with my next empathy book, which is The Empathy Dilemma, to help leaders understand how to balance performance, people, and personal boundaries. So I come from a very strong philosophy that it's not empathy or performance, empathy or accountability.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
both and.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
Empathy, both and I love how you frame that, by the way, because it's almost like empathy is, we feel like it's automatic. Like we feel like it's always there. Oh, I'm gonna put together my brand story. I'm already, there's already empathy there. We don't really need to discuss that. We don't really need to be specific about it. But why do you think it's not such a huge focus? And why do you think most brands miss out on it? Why do we not really talk
Mm-hmm.
about empathy to a level where we don't really integrate it into, let's start with the brand first, right? How you tell your
Mm-hmm.
stories, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
it feels like individuality, I'm going to be genuine about things, but
Mm-hmm.
what is it that makes a brand storytelling, you know, emphatic? How do you
Mm-hmm.
make an emphatic brand storytelling? I think that's a real question there.
Yeah. I think because empathy is not any one thing. So you
Hmm.
have to know your customers and your clients so well. You have to understand their values, their fears, what keeps them up at night, what benefits they seek, who they want to be, what their goals are. And so instead of starting with leading with your product or your solution, you need to start with who your people are and who you're talking to. And then that's how you embed empathy into the story. You tell the story of empathy. The story itself becomes empathetic because you are speaking directly to their needs and their goals in the language they speak. So not just the jargon you want to say, but how did they actually describe the problem? How do they actually talk about the solution? What are the benefits they say they want? And taking note of that and embedding that in your brand story, in your sales copy, in your marketing messaging. I think we kind of go through this bell curve a little bit where when you start out as an entrepreneur, you're so close to your customers and your clients, and you just naturally do this, right? You start talking to everybody, you're collecting a lot of market research, and then something happens with success where you get in your ivory tower and you forget to check in with customers and clients because they evolve. The market evolves, your competition evolves. And so what you assumed to be true 10 years ago or 5 years ago might not be true for your people now. And
Hmm.
so this is why in my brand work specifically, I really get my clients to understand, forget about all the things you want to say about yourself and your products and all the great technologies and the widgets and the things you want to, it's all about me.
Hmm.
What do they care about? And get them back to that sort of entrepreneurial spirit of being in the trenches with their clients and with their customers and building the story from there. And so what about your philosophy and your success and your technology are going to be most compelling to them? And
Hmm.
that changes the story. Then it's not so much
Right.
about what you want to say, but what they need to hear. I have, we're going to talk about this later, but I have a free masterclass where I talk to folks about a 4-step framework to craft a captivating brand story rooted in empathy so that they are attracting the right fit clients and customers. Because if you just say what you want to say and you spray it across the world, you're going to get a lot of wrong fit customers that show up at your door and never buy from you.
I love that. I love, and of course, Maria. I think it's framing again, and I feel like it's framing because when you talk about your brands, when you talk about your product, those things are what you talk about. Like, what do people want? What are the needs, right? You talk about like what is the gap that you're trying to fill? What are their needs? What are
Hmm.
their values? But I feel like when you start framing it from the side of in the context of empathy, it
Hmm.
it totally opens it up. Because for one
Hmm.
thing, it's like you're talking to just in jargon, like you're talking to just in just strictly terms, like what are their
Hmm.
needs? I'm addressing this. I'm addressing X. I'm
Hmm.
addressing Y, and this
Right.
is what we need to talk about. If you frame it in the context of empathy, I feel like
Hmm.
it truly makes it more genuine. It makes it opens up all the
Yeah.
possibilities and how you communicate. Your vocabulary absolutely change. Your story totally changes. And
Hmm.
again, I can see why marketing would just the potential of marketing yourself
Hmm.
backed up by empathy. You start with empathy first. I can see
Hmm.
now why, like, wow, that the potential behind that.
Yeah.
Imagine, Maria, if empathy was a muscle. So I think we're getting deeper into this now. If
Hmm.
empathy was a muscle, how do leaders now go about strengthening it, but while also balancing business performance? We kind of opened
Yeah.
up with this question earlier, right? Like, it's
Hmm.
just like, is it just for profit? Is it just good PR? But
Hmm.
clearly it isn't. But if I were to practice empathy, I want it to be stronger when it comes to my
Hmm.
team, when it comes to your company. How do I now strengthen that, but also while not forgetting that there's still numbers to take care of?
Yeah. So those are two separate questions, which is why I have two
Hmm.
separate books. The first book, The Empathy
Ah,
Edge, was about
perfect.
how to strengthen your empathy as a leader and a culture and a team and provide actionable tactics and strategies, practices, if you will, to
Mm-hmm.
strengthen that empathy for yourself and for your team. And then this book is a direct result of all the work that I've done in recent years around workshops and keynotes and strategy sessions where leaders were saying, okay, we're bought in. We understand that there's ROI around empathy and we're trying to practice it. And here's where it gets hard. Here's where it's challenging. And I would say that, number one, there are lots of strength exercises you can do to build your empathy. One is about practicing mindfulness and getting your own house in order before you make space for someone else's point of view. Another is getting curious and asking questions, and listening actively to the answers so that you can understand someone's perspective and their context.
Mm-hmm.
And also just exploring with your imagination, consuming documentaries, movies, books, art, music from people who are not like you. So you practice that muscle of, I wonder what they're going through. I wonder what that must feel like. I wonder what they're thinking. How would I feel in that situation? Those are the muscles you need to build so that when you're in the workplace, you can apply those same skills when you're having a budget debate with someone, or you're having to deliver a really rough performance evaluation, a really uncomfortable performance evaluation, or you're having to do layoffs. You can do all of that with an eye towards empathy by understanding what people need, what they might be feeling, what they might be thinking, what questions they might have, and asking them, what support do you need from me? Do you just need space? Do you need me to provide something else for you? What is it that you need in order to do your best work? Because we have to remember that at the end of the day, all of this in the workplace, yes, you want to create connections with human beings because we
Mm-hmm.
don't park our humanity at the office door. But you also have a job to do. You also have goals to meet. You have
Right.
performance objectives to hit. And
Right.
so you always want to be really clear as a leader, what is your main goal? And the reason you employ empathy is so that your people can do their best work and help you achieve the goal. It's not choosing empathy over performance. I think that mindset shift has to be the first step of us understanding that we're not choosing empathy or performance, like we said before. It's
Yes.
empathy for performance. It's empathy so that people can be themselves and bring themselves to work and not live under fear or anxiety or stress, because brain science shows us that our cognitive skills shut down. Our
Yes.
executive skills shut down when we're under
Yes.
fear or stress. So your goal as a leader is to make sure that your people feel that they are in a safe environment where they can innovate, where they can make mistakes, where they can think thoughtfully about things, because that's how you're going to meet your goals. So I think that, in the new book, I talk about 5 pillars that enable you to be both an effective and an empathetic leader. And the first 2 really start with examining yourself. So self-awareness and self-care, understanding your own strengths, your weaknesses, your triggers, to take a growth mindset. We're not perfect leaders. And if you think you have nothing to work on, I can promise you that that leader is probably not very empathetic. Because
Wow.
if you actually could see things from another person's point of view, you might say, oh, there might be some things I could work on and improve, because you have a growth mindset. So you need to be, as a leader, responsible for what you bring into an interaction and what you bring into the team that's either helping or hurting them achieve the goals you want them to achieve.
Wow, I love that. I love how you said that, by the way. Empathy for performance, and putting yourself in the shoes of the people of your team and learning a bit more how they think, and so we could contribute further to their
Right,
betterment. Of course,
right.
better workforce, better people, better team,
Exactly. Yeah.
everything's better.
Yeah.
First of all, can I just say that how much do we need that vocabulary today, right? In everywhere else, not just in the workplace, right?
No, it's
It,
it's that's the goal, is it's not just about
it's
the workplace, it's about the world as well. Yeah.
exactly because
Yeah.
gosh, because the times today, and everything that we're dealing with, we
Yeah.
truly need a bit more empathy. And of course, it's a
Mhm.
great place to start at the workplace,
Mhm.
practicing that empathy muscle, making sure that, we know what people need, what our team needs, especially for leaders. And,
Right.
I always love these topics when it comes to like workplace culture, trying to flip, what
Uh-huh.
we approach workplace, making a healthier workplace. And I think empathy truly lives in that core, because if we don't have that in that core, then it just doesn't feel genuine. I feel like it's all surface level.
Exactly.
You really don't change anything. And again, on your website, by the way, before I really ask this question, it's kind of a two-pronged question once again. The website is redslice.com,
Red
red-slice.com.
dash slice, yeah.
On there, it says achieve radical success through empathy. Literally the first
Mhm.
header on that
Mm.
website. We talked about that earlier. Again, like,
Mhm.
it isn't just a nice to have thing, but a business advantage.
It's a huge
I
business
it's
advantage, yeah.
I want to now ask any stories that stand out to you, Maria. Any stories that a turning point in anyone that you work with that made them
Mhm.
realize, like, wow, it really is. It reshaped my company. It reshaped
Mhm.
our strategy. It reshaped our
Mhm.
performance, and it reshaped me as a leader. Is there anything that stands out to you? And
Yeah.
by the way, why red slice?
We can talk about that later, but yeah, I do want to make a point that, there's data out there that show that when you compare, there's one research study that compared employees that said their leader was empathetic versus employees that said their leader was not empathetic. And the difference in so many vectors was startling. The folks
Okay.
that said that their leader was empathetic reported that they were able to be 60% innovative versus like 30% were able to be innovative in an environment where there was no empathy. So, talk about a direct market advantage. If your people are not feeling safe enough and feeling good enough about where they work and engaged enough to come up with new ideas, to take calculated risks, to innovate and move the business forward, you're not going to be able to compete in the 21st century market. It's not possible. So I did just want to point that out, because that's another huge thing, is that they have correlated empathetic environments with being more innovative, because like we said earlier, you're free to relax and you're free to say, okay, I feel seen, heard, and valued here. And now I can create, I can innovate. So I did just want to talk about that. But there's lots of stories, there's lots of data and research. The one that always sticks with me was a brand client that I had many, many years ago. And it was a technology company. And we were working on getting them to articulate their true mission and
Hmm.
vision. And you say,
Okay.
why does it matter, right? Let's just talk about how great the technology is. And that's kind of where they were. And again, I can cite, there's a whole body of research about if you're a purpose-driven organization, how you outperform in the market, but that's
Okay.
for another guest to tackle for you. But I remember we sat in this cross-functional brand workshop. We had folks from HR, from sales, from marketing, the C-suite was there. And they were all sort of like, well, I think what we do is X, and I think what we do is Y, and I think we provide this technology to do this, whatever. And they were all just so focused on the technology. And finally, I just sort of like dramatically put my papers down and said, why do you all come to work every day? Like, you could work anywhere for any technology company. Why are you here? And everyone got really silent. And then the CEO basically said, well, because he was the founder, he said, I started this company to, you know, create thriving communities, to help marry workplaces with people who need work so that we can have thriving communities. And everyone's just sort of relaxed. And they realized it wasn't about the technology. It was about what the technology enabled ultimately their clients and customers to do for communities. And they were like, yeah, that's something I want to be a part of. That's something that I want to go to work for. And it wasn't fake. It wasn't not true. It was absolutely true. So that's the other thing. It's not about lying. It's about, elevating that truth of the story in a way that gives people purpose and gives people momentum. And I remember a few months later, the CEO wrote me an email and said, this wasn't just a brand project. He said, we actually changed the way we talk to each other and to our clients within our company. And it sort of like gave them a spring in their step and an energy and a boost of just like, we're not just here to sell software. We're here to do all these other things. When you have that approach, when you have people that feel good about what they're doing from the perspective of the people they serve, and you have this bias towards service, the profits will come, the sales will come, because that's pretty irresistible for clients and customers. They want to be a part of that. They don't just want to be a part of making you more money this quarter. They could give a crap about that. They care about how you're going to improve their life and their work. And your employees would much rather sign up for something where they know they're helping improve someone's life or work than they are in adding a few cents to your stock price. That's not
Wow.
going to sustain them.
It's true. That is very true. And again, like people just want to be part of something. If you
Yeah.
make sure that they know you communicate that effectively,
Mm-hmm.
the culture in the workplace and how businesses operate, how corporations operate, it has always been numbers first, right?
Mm-hmm.
Performance first. How are we doing better? But nobody relates to that. I think we're seeing that now. We're starting to
Mm-hmm.
see that like no one really cares. And why is it not sustainable? Like you said, why is
Mm-hmm.
it not sustainable? Because we don't feel like we're part of anything. But if we put empathy first, we make people like they're part of it. Of course, the possibilities are endless. Maria,
Yeah.
I love it. I love the way you talk about it. You truly are an expert into this, the empathy expert, the mother, the goddess of empathy, so to speak. Talk to us a little bit about that. Why Red Slice, by the way, red-slice.com. What was the inspiration behind that name?
That's a whole different left turn story,
Oh,
but yeah,
really?
my business started out just based off of a personal blog that I had about
Hmm.
my own different passions and different slices of my passions. And I
Wow.
have red hair, so my blog was called Red Slice. So when I started my brand consultancy, I didn't just want to call it Ross Consulting, and I was like, let me pick Red Slice, and it soon turned into helping my clients and helping organizations stand out in a sea of competition and sort of be that red apple slice that stands out above all the other green apples. And so that was my brand imagery for a long time, and so the name has stuck.
I love it. I love the story behind it, of course. And again, I love
Mhm.
how you angled it and twisted. Like you are still, you have that edge. Once again, you found that edge and you're sharing it to all the leaders and the corporation, the teams out there. I love it. I love that you have this message out. I love that we get the opportunity to tell that message and share that message on the show today. Once again, to our audience and listeners out there, Red Dash, we find you. Where else can we connect?
So if they go to red-slice.com, all my socials are there, but I'm on LinkedIn, Maria J. Ross. I just ask if people want to connect with me. They say they heard me on this podcast, so customize the note. I'm also on Instagram, Red Slice Maria. Those are pretty much the main places I hang out. And then, as I mentioned, I have a really great free masterclass for folks on how to build that empathetic brand story. And I think we're going to put the link in the show notes, but it's
Absolutely.
bit.ly/4 step brand story, 4-step brand story, all one word, bit.ly, and they can get access to a free masterclass and get some of this information in a practical way to apply to their brand messaging.
Very, very interesting stuff and very, very exciting stuff, of course, to all our audience listeners out there. Make sure to go check out Maria. Go grab that masterclass opportunity. Maria, thank you so much for coming on to the show. It truly has been quite the episode and quite the story that we had today.
Great. Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. To all our audience and listeners out there, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and we will see you on the next one. Bye bye.
All right, so here's the thing. We try to get a little bit better every day, but we can't do it without you. So if you like the video, make sure to like and subscribe below. And if you have any comments, just leave them in the space under.